Shashi Tharoor joins me live on the channel. Mr. Tharoor, thank you for joining us. I want to, of course, begin by congratulating you for your win in Thiruvananthapuram. But at the same time, the rest of the party is in what can only be described as disarray.
Thank you.
Do you have a status right now on Rahul Gandhi's resignation and what the CWC is currently discussing, and whether or not they're going to accept his resignation?
No, I don't, Faye, because I'm neither a member of the CWC nor have I seen Rahul Gandhi today. I think that's your line of inquiry. You should speak to the spokesman of the party.
All right, so let me change.
Who I believe has seen him.
Yes, let me change the line of inquiry then. You are going to now spend again the next 5 years of this term in Parliament as a member of Parliament. At the same time, there seems to be perhaps chaos among various members of the Congress party. I just want to understand right now, as a senior leader yourself, what is your response to what is going on and to the party leadership? Or how do you feel right now about the way the party is handling the loss?
Well, look, let me just say that obviously everybody is in a bit of a state of shock about this result. It was not expected, and it wasn't expected not just by us, but by any of the other parties in the fray or by political observers. I dare say even the BJP, until the exit polls came, would not have expected the kind of stupendous result that they've actually accomplished. So we are all digesting it. I think there are some very serious questions that the defeated parties are all asking themselves. Where did we misread the national mood or the tea leaves of the election? What did we get wrong and what did they get right? We all have glimmerings of an answer, but I think it needs a very serious assessment, including ground level reports from places where we lost and where the BJP did better than expected, for us to be able to fully grasp exactly what happened and to recover from it. But having said that, it's obviously indispensable that the Congress party must revive, must get back in gear. We have state elections coming up this year in the next 4 or 5 months, for which we must be prepared. And I believe we stand for a set of principles and values which are indispensable to this country and which have a large following in this country. We can't let those followers down. So while the initial disarray, as you put it, is understandable, we'll have to soon put it behind us, because I don't think we have the luxury now of licking our wounds. We have a country to save and state elections to win.
Mr. Tharoor, the disarray, and you're absolutely right, the Congress will need to revive itself. But do you believe that this uncertainty, and the period of uncertainty has gone on now for several days, we don't have an answer yet, is this actually helping the party at this point, or is it adding to the chaos?
Well, look, I mean, I can't give you an answer to that because a lot of this is being played out in the media. And so you and I know as much about this as each other. The truth is that I think that the attempts being made, particularly in the media, to pin the entire blame and responsibility for the setback on one individual, Rahul Gandhi, is unfair and frankly trivializes the larger issues facing the party. There are fundamental questions about the narrative of the party, the messaging of the party, the organization of the party, the way in which we are conducting ourselves during and between elections. All of these are matters that cannot simply be hung conveniently around the neck of one individual, even if he is the party president. I think there is a collective responsibility that most of us bear for this, and I would go so far as to say that many of us need to look afresh at how we do things in our own states, in our own parts of the party, in our own ways of actually addressing both the ideological challenge and the organizational challenge posed by the BJP.
Mr. Tharoor, and I'm going to ask you this point blank. There are several members of the party who've come forward saying that Rahul Gandhi is the only possible option as party president, and the party could not or will not survive without a Gandhi at the helm. Is that also your opinion? Are you of the belief that the party can only survive and thrive and even live if there is a Gandhi at the helm of the party?
Well, look, I think the DNA of the party is inextricably linked with that of the Gandhi-Nehru family. I don't think there's anything particularly new or surprising about that. And they have a tremendous hold on the affections of the people as a whole and of the nation and the party workers specifically, precisely because of their long contributions to the country, as well as undoubtedly the sacrifices many of them have made, including, as we know, in the case of two leaders of the Congress, their own lives were laid down for the nation. And therefore, there is this sense that many people have that they are not just inseparable from the party, but in many ways they embody the best qualities of what the party is all about. And that has a strong electoral appeal in many places as well. Now, that is not to say that there isn't room for other leadership. Don't forget our last two prime ministers were non-Gandhis. So the Congress party has leaders who are able to pull their weight. And I think the time has come that everybody must chip in and take on the responsibilities, their share of the responsibilities, in order to help the party move forward.
Mr. Tharoor, I'll ask you a question that a lot of people are asking on the internet right now, and you've also hinted to it. Would you be open to being party president of the Congress party?
No, I don't think that's a realistic sort of objective. First of all, I think we have a new generation party president, recently appointed just a couple of years ago, and I think we should actually be helping him to energize the party and to revive it, as he was trying to do. I think most people will concede, most fair-minded people, that his efforts in leading the party and his campaigning over the last year and a half or so have been spectacular. He's been in a different place every day. He has fought hard, he has spoken, he has taken up issues that others weren't touching. He has really been right in the forefront of the Congress party effort. And I think after this setback and the hurt and disappointment that he must feel, as all of us feel, that we need him back with the same level of energy and commitment that he has shown in the last year and a half. Now, having said that, it's also true that as far as the responsibilities of a party leader are concerned, there are a lot. For example, there is the question of the party in Parliament in both houses, whether, for example, he feels he has the time available to take that on. I would love to see him leading us from the front in the Lok Sabha as well. But if he were not available to do that, then certainly some of us will need to pull our weight, because so many of our stalwarts have been defeated in this election, that the rest of us who have some experience in Parliament and some skills there should certainly be prepared to step up to the plate if required. As I say, I hope it won't be required, because we do have a leader who's young, a good deal younger than me, and full of energy and drive that he's demonstrated in the last couple of years, particularly.
So, Mr. Tharoor, obviously there are two jobs here. One is for party president. The other one is for leader of opposition within Parliament. Do you believe that maybe because of the kind of work it involves, that these two posts should be held by two different people?
Well, and that's clearly the conclusion Rahul Gandhi came to last time, in that he chose not to take on the leadership in the Lok Sabha, because it is very much a full-time job. One has to be there the whole time, and as a party president, he felt he had too many other responsibilities. Now, he may not choose to make the same call this time. He may indeed decide to take on the role in the Lok Sabha, which we would all welcome. But if he felt once again that he had this broader nationwide responsibility that prevents him from doing so, then certainly there are a few of us, I'm sure, in the party who would be willing to step forward, and I think I'm ready to be one of those.
Well, I'm sure that's a comment that the party is pleased to hear. But I also want to ask you, out of the source-based information that's coming out of the CWC series of meetings, one of the pieces of the information was that the CWC has assured Rahul Gandhi that he will have complete control and free hand to be able to make the changes to the party that he wants to make or he feels are necessary in order to revive the party after the last election results. My question to this would be, could it be possible then to assume that for 2 years he's been president of the party without control, and he hasn't been able to basically make the changes he feels necessary?
I think you'd have to ask that question to members of the CWC, Faye, because I'm not. To my mind, Rahul Gandhi has been very much in charge of the party, and I don't think that he has in any way felt intimidated or shackled or handcuffed by others. So I'm sure that he has made what he considers to be the right decisions at every stage. And as somebody who has the intelligence, the energy, the drive, he can pick up from wherever he believes he needs to change his approach and go ahead and do that. I don't think there's anyone preventing him from doing that. But no doubt those who drafted those words must have something specifically in mind. I have never had any impression that Rahul Gandhi was constrained or restrained other than by his own judgment of how necessary it was to take various sections of the party along. Leading a party like the Congress, which is not only an old party, but a party that spans many generations of people, and of course has a presence everywhere in the country, is no easy task. And I'm sure he was always reconciling various interests in the decisions he was making, but they were still very much his decisions.
Well, Mr. Tharoor, what, according to you, were the main reasons for the Congress's performance, abysmal performance in this election? There's been one criticism that other than Amrinder Singh, perhaps the Congress has not allowed any of the state leaders to truly flourish and truly run their states and build their cadre from the ground. And that's what hurt finally. There weren't enough people on the ground as they should have been. Do you see this as one of the problems the party is facing?
Well, I think we've actually adopted different approaches at different times in different states. There have been times, for example, when we were quick off the mark in offering a future chief minister to the public. We did that with Nitish Kumar in Bihar when he was part of our Gathbandhan. But there have been other times when we have been reluctant to anoint one leader for fear of antagonizing other leaders, and that too has created perhaps some slightly less effective image in some states at some times. But there hasn't been just one pattern. It's varied from state to state and time to time. But I would argue that certainly the battle for the Congress's revival does begin in the states. There is no question that the Congress has the great advantage of being the only other party with a truly national footprint. We have a presence everywhere. Even where we've lost everywhere. But where we've won everywhere. North, south, east, west, southwest, northeast. The Congress party is a tangible presence with a real history and real leaders. Now, it seems to me that since the next general elections are 5 years away, we need to spend those 5 years strengthening ourselves in the states, and that will include encouraging the growth of regional stalwarts, having them go out, absolutely fighting elections with courage and confidence, and giving them all the backing we can from headquarters. I think there's plenty of experience and talent in the Congress party in Delhi, and there's a lot of energy in the state levels as well. So I think this is where we're going to start. We've got 3 state elections this year. I think there are 4 next year. The thing about India is there are elections every 6 months somewhere or the other. Let's use each of those as a proving ground to come out once again as the Congress that can win. I believe
Mr. Tharoor, you're right. There are state elections in 4 months, and we understand from the BJP that their campaigns for these elections are ready and are being rolled out as we speak. The Congress, on the other hand, has still locked themselves up in that room trying to decide whether or not Rahul Gandhi will take back his resignation. What message does this send out to the cadre on the ground that's going to have to prepare for these elections? And secondly, do you believe that there's too much power right now in the structure of the party centered at party high command? Yes, go ahead.
No, Faye, the fact is it's only been a couple of days, so let's not over-dramatize it. The elections are just about more than 4 months away. And I think one important difference is that all those voters who seem to be telling journalists today that they didn't vote for their local BJP MP candidate, they voted for Mr. Modi. That argument will not apply anymore when it comes to state elections. We've heard the reverse in Rajasthan, where many voters have been quoted as saying something along the lines of, we voted against Vasundhara Raje, but we voted this time for Modi. Well, Modi is not going to be ruling their states. And I think if that's really what it was about, a very strong personality cult around the Prime Minister, that option is not there in the states. And I think we will be able to come up with a far more effective localized narrative in each state. So don't be in a hurry to write us off merely because the BJP has its organizational muscle in place. We have ideals, we have principles, we have values which to my mind are very congruent with the heart and soul of India. And I think that this is going to resonate with the voters time after time. Remember that it's only 3 months ago, well, 5 months ago, that you were all celebrating the astonishing result of Congress winning 3 states.
But Mr. Tharoor, the
the world
Congress's
doesn't change
inability to
overnight.
convert.
I think the fact
Yes.
is those were states we won on state issues.
The inability to convert that win in those 3 states into any sort of tangible lead in these elections.
State issues, Faye.
Yes.
Understood, but that's precisely the difference that the voter seems to be making between national elections and state elections, between a national leader and a state leader, between national issues and state issues. This is where we can score, because I don't think that the BJP has brought Achhe Din to too many people's lives. And that is presumably where their weakness was overcome by Mr. Modi, his 56-inch chest, his Balakot strike, this notion that he was the one man who could keep India safe from the malign threats from within and without. All of this kind of campaign is no longer relevant when you're electing a government in Haryana or Jharkhand.
But I do want to ask you this.
And I think that's where the Congress party will have to come back with a strong local message.
I do want to ask you this. You're absolutely right. Several people have now turned around and said that
I'm sorry, I lost you there.
Yes, several voters have turned around and said that they voted directly for Narendra Modi as a Prime Minister in all constituencies. In that case, and you were talking about how he presented himself as a strong leader, did the Congress had an inability to do that? Did Rahul Gandhi fail to present himself as a strong leader? There was no, and this was constantly said, that there was no alternative to Narendra Modi as a prime ministerial candidate. There was no clear message from the Congress party. The Nyay scheme, even though announced, did not carry to the to the last mile because the communication failed. So where did the Congress party go wrong? Do you believe it was in communication, it was in messaging, or it was the inability to present the country with a leader?
Well, I think we've talked about. Now, look, in many ways, a lot of different factors come in. There was certainly the question of messaging. The BJP was smart on and for much longer. I mean, let's face it, 9 lakh WhatsApp groups, God knows how many, Facebook and Twitter and other outreach programs, as well as, of course, printed leaflets. They had no shortage of funding, augmented by 5,600 crores, as we know, of taxpayer money being spent on promoting their every program. So there was a tremendous amount of relentless publicity ever since they came to power in 2014, which helped build up their image. And when you ask about Rahul Gandhi, I think he was caricatured for so long that though he was indeed a hard-working and effective leader, the caricature by the BJP was difficult to live down. Then there were other factors. We mentioned the national security angle, Pulwama and Balakot. I've talked earlier about the personality cult built up assiduously around Mr. Modi. All of these things played their part. And I think one thing we have to recognize is that a number of these sort of micro-level projects reaching down to the last mile made a difference. They made more of a difference than they should have, because I'm talking about toilets and gas connections and so on. I mean, we know that 65% of the toilets don't have running water. We know that the gas connections, most people can't afford refills. But we didn't perhaps hammer away sufficiently at that, and that may have made a difference on particularly poor rural voters. So there are all of these things we have to study. You were right about Nyay. I think it was an extremely interesting, innovative, and possibly game-changing scheme that was unveiled too late. That could have come out 6 months earlier, and that when it was actually announced and pushed across the country, it only reached, according to polls, at about 50% of the electorate, and arguably the wrong 50%. They reached the urban, educated, professional newspaper reading classes, who by and large are the ones who have to pay for Nyay, rather than the 20% below the poverty line, who are the ones who are going to benefit from Nyay. So there was, I think, at the very least, a timing error in terms of rolling it out. But all of these things we will have to remedy. See, we have to sit and do a serious assessment, and then it seems to me we have to go out and correct our deficiencies. But this issue, when it comes to state governments, is something that we can project with great confidence at the local level. There's also anti-incumbency in many of these states, where the BJP has not exactly covered itself with glory.
I just want to ask you this, and you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. There is a massive task ahead to actually analyze what went wrong in this election. And, you know, we do know that there are 29 different Indias voting in a general election. Every state has a different reason for why it votes and who it chooses. It's a massive task. But Rahul Gandhi put in a resignation 48 hours after the results came out. He didn't offer the party a plan. He obviously hadn't had enough time to find out what went wrong and who was responsible. And since then, the party has sort of been paralyzed with this question of how is this going to go forward. Is this fundamentally also immature as a reaction to the loss?
Listen, I think we're in a situation where we can't win. Last time, when a resignation was offered and declined by the working committee, and they carried straight on, you all said, "Oh, this is pure drama. It's pure script. It wasn't sincere at either side, etc." This time, when the evident sincerity of his wish to take responsibility is on offer, you're saying it's also negative. It's like we can't win whatever we do. He has done what many democratic leaders have done, said, look, the buck stops with me, I'm stepping down. The people whose job it is to say yes or no to that have said, no, we can't let you go. The party needs you, the country needs you. And he is now clearly in the process of contemplating what he should do. I think we should respect that and actually see it as actually a rather mature process of reflection. I too join you in hoping it doesn't go on too long because we want the leadership back up and running in full gear. But I think you really have to show a little more respect to the sincerity of purpose behind this, rather than dismissing it in the words you use, Faye, because as I said, 5 years ago, the opposite happened and you all dismissed that too.
Well, point taken, Mr. Tharoor. I also want to ask you this. Priyanka Gandhi's entry into politics, into active politics in this particular election, has also been pointed out as a reason that added to the Congress's loss, because she wasn't brought in early enough. The decisions weren't made with enough planning. The deployment of her energies across the country were perhaps not the best or the most ideal. Do you think that there could have been better planning in the utilization of Priyanka Gandhi as a campaigning force, or is that the best that she could have done?
Faye, you're asking the wrong guy, because you're asking the wrong guy. I was completely stuck in Kerala in a very tough campaign, particularly for my own seat, where the BJP had pulled out all the stops. And I was simply not focused on what was going on in UP. I apologize. There are plenty of Congress people who could answer that, but I can't. My apologies.
Well, I must also ask you this. If you were asked today to chart a plan for the revival of the Congress, what would your plan be?
Oh, there'd be many things. First of all, start off, as I said, by reviving ourselves in the states, do a great deal more to strengthen our party organization, starting with those states where we have to go to the polls this year, and then extending that footprint across the country, but with a priority given to states where elections have to take place, doing a great deal more to communicate a clear and coherent message of what we stand for, which, you may be right, has been somewhat obscured in the course of the confusions of the last election, underscoring very strongly that we too are not going to yield the nationalism space to the BJP, except that ours is an inclusive nationalism. We are the original party of nationalism. We've fought for the freedom of this country, which nobody associated with the BJP's line of thinking did. And having therefore been the protectors of Indian nationalism, we find that idea being usurped by people of a much more narrow and chauvinistic version of what Indian nationhood is all about than we do. Stress the importance of inclusive India, and I mean all kinds of inclusion, inclusiveness across religion, inclusiveness across regions, inclusive across languages, and inclusiveness of socioeconomic categories. We have always been a party that stood for including everybody, for pulling in the excluded, the marginalized, the oppressed. We can't stop not doing that.
Yes.
We have to absolutely continue underscoring that message. And if we do all this, I believe we will really get a lot of sympathy from many parts of the country. There are many, many Indians who like what the Congress stands for. Do not forget the BJP's resounding win this time is on 37% of the vote. There are still 63% of Indians who haven't bought into their agenda. That 63% are the people we must appeal to. And perhaps some of the 37 may change their mind too.
Well, I just want to point out that while the vote share of the BJP was 37%, the vote share of the NDA altogether was closer to 45. But I do want to ask you this, Mr. Tharoor. There was convoluted messaging that came out of the Congress party during this election.
Still a majority.
Soft Hindutva, for example. Most of the Gandhi spent a lot of time in temples. Digvijay Singh had massive havans, not enough tickets. So the tickets handed out to Muslims were sharply lower this time than it was in the previous election. Tickets handed out to women were sharply lower, even though you are a party that claims to be secular, pro-women, that you know, forward-thinking, progressive. Was there a complication or perhaps a short-term doubt to the identity and the ideology of this party?
No, I don't think so. And in fact, I reject utterly the idea that the Congress practiced in any way soft Hindutva. We have consistently made a distinction. I've done it in my books and my speeches myself, that Hinduism is a religion that many of us Congress members happen to lay claim to, but it has nothing to do with Hindutva, which is a political doctrine emerging from the 1920s with a particular view of India that we do not share. And the Congress party and the Gandhi family have had no truck with Hindutva of any kind, soft or hard. So I think we must make it very clear that when we speak, when Rahul Gandhi goes to a temple, he's speaking of an inclusive Hinduism. When I've written why I'm a Hindu, it has been to advocate this liberal, all-encompassing, extremely accepting Hinduism, which accepts and respects different faiths and people who practice other ways of living and worship. That is the Hinduism that the Congress party is proud to lay claim to. We have never in any shape or form subscribed to Hindutva. And I think that is absolutely something that we must insist upon. There should be no ambiguity about. But at the same time, I think some of the messaging you're referring to was in response again to the caricaturing of the Congress by the BJP and the NDA as a party of the minorities, as a party that's quote unquote into minority appeasement, doesn't look after Hindu interests. It's preposterous. And therefore, it was important to visually remind the voters that, hey, many of us are also Hindus. Frankly, we've always been Hindus. It's just that we haven't found it necessary.
Mr. Tharoor, let me ask you, if I may, and I know we're running out of time.
Just as we have Christians and Sikhs and Muslims in our
Let me ask you a personal question, if I may. As a member of a minority religious community in India, when the two major national parties of the country are in a race to prove who is Hindu, who's more Hindu than the other, or I'm also Hindu, where does that leave the rest of us? Who stands for the Christians, the Muslims, the Parsis, the Jews, maybe the atheists of this country? If everyone is in a race to prove their Hinduism, isn't it a terribly unfortunate day in this country, in this great country, that we're having to even have this conversation? It's horribly disappointing to me personally.
No, that's a very, very, very good question, Faye. Like you, I went to school in Mumbai and I had friends of every faith and all my classmates and friends. I was never particularly conscious of the differences of religion, and we're still in touch with each other 5 decades later. I know the spirit from which you're speaking. The honest truth is that the Congress party will always stand by the idea that every Christian, every Muslim, every Parsi, every Jew has the right, every atheist, as well as the Sikhs, the Buddhists and the Jains, whom the BJP are willing to lay claim to, that they all have the rights to be themselves, to worship as they see fit, to live as they want to. I think that this Hindu messaging you're concerned about, you're conflating two different things. There is a messaging aimed at the majority of the electorate that was being misled by a distortion of what the Congress party was about. But there is a social reality, which is one of an integrated India in which everyone is equal, and that is buttressed by a constitution that ensures equality under the law, freedom of worship, freedom of religion, freedom of opinion. And these are things, when the Congress party defends the constitution, it is defending the rights of every Christian, every Parsi, every Jew as well. Please understand that the Congress party will not walk away from its fundamental obligation to save, protect, promote the India that Mahatma Gandhi fought to free. It is not the India of Mr. Savarkar and Mr. Golwalkar and the others that the present ruling dispensation is so happy to lay claim to. It is the India of Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. Ambedkar, Maulana Azad. These were the leaders who shaped an India that we are all proud to be heir to, and we will continue keeping that flame alive.
Well, Mr. Tharoor, I know we have run out of time, quite surely this time. I thank you for giving us time here on Mirror Now, and I wish you very good luck for your term in Parliament and in the future. Thank you for speaking with us.